Did you know there's a force inside you that quietly shapes every dream, regret, reaction, and desire? Yet most people will never confront it directly. Carl Jung called this mysterious presence the shadow. It's not just an idea from bygone psychology. It's a living, breathing part of your story, one that holds the key to becoming more whole than you ever imagined. Picture yourself as an iceberg floating in dark waters. The part you show the world, the part you know and polish for friends, lovers, and colleagues. That's just the tip. Beneath the waterline lies everything you've pushed away, buried, or been told to hide since childhood. Here live the embarrassing stories, the jealousies you're ashamed of, the impulses you regret, but also all the boldness, creativity, and wild joy you left behind to fit in. Travel back to early 20th century Switzerland, where a brilliant psychiatrist named Carl Jung sits in his study, daring to challenge the world's understanding of the human psyche. In an era still new to psychoanalysis, Jung proposes something radical. Everyone, beneath their carefully constructed persona, harbors a shadow self. Not a villain lurking in dark alleys, but a collection of disowned parts desperately seeking recognition. Jung declared, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." What if those patterns you've labeled as character flaws, your anxiety, criticism, or string of bad luck, are actually your shadow's attempts to communicate? What if unlocking this hidden aspect of yourself could radically transform not just your relationships and creativity, but even break cycles of generational trauma that have shaped your family for decades? As children, from the first day you were told not to cry too loud or to be nice, even when angry, you started building your own personal shadow. Each time we repress a feeling or trait, we feed the shadow. Most people think of it as darkness, but Jung believed it's as rich and complex as the rest of you. The shadow isn't just bad. It hides the traits that could set you free, your assertiveness, your sexuality, or your ability to create and imagine boldly. The shadow doesn't announce its presence with fanfare. It slips into our lives through the cracks of our consciousness, revealing itself in moments when we least expect it. Picture yourself in an ordinary conversation when someone makes a seemingly harmless comment, yet suddenly you feel your chest tighten and anger flare beyond all proportion. That disproportionate reaction, that's your shadow speaking. It whispers through the patterns we can't seem to break, even when we desperately want to. You might find yourself sabotaging yet another promising relationship just as it begins to deepen, or walking away from career opportunities that could transform your life. These aren't random acts of self-destruction. They're the shadow's way of keeping you trapped in familiar territory, even when that territory no longer serves you. Perhaps most cunningly, the shadow operates through projection, turning other people into mirrors of our disowned parts. That colleague whose arrogance infuriates you beyond reason might be reflecting your own suppressed pride. The friend whose neediness exhausts you could be showing you the dependency you refuse to acknowledge in yourself. We become most irritated by the very traits we've buried deepest within our own psyche. Even in sleep, the shadow refuses to stay silent. It haunts our dreams with recurring nightmares, weaving symbolic narratives that our conscious mind struggles to decode. The shadow doesn't stop at the mind. It speaks through our bodies too. It emerges in defense mechanisms that now imprison rather than protect, in unexplained fears and chronic pain that doctors can't diagnose. When our consciousness refuses to listen, the body remembers what we've tried to forget. Jung believed the only way to true freedom was straight through this shadowy underworld. Facing it isn't an act of futility or just more self-help. It's the hero's journey turned inward. When you finally stop running and walks into those forbidden rooms of the psyche, ask, what do I most avoid? What memory makes my stomach tense? Which qualities in others bother me most and why? You begin the lifelong process of making what's unconscious conscious. This confrontation with your darkness isn't an act of masochism. It's the gateway to wholeness. As you dig the buried parts of yourself, you discover a newfound authenticity that radiates through every aspect of your life. Old wounds that have rotted in the shadows finally begin to heal. Your relationships deepen and become more genuine as you stop projecting your disowned parts onto others. You break the invisible chains of intergenerational trauma, refusing to pass on what was never truly yours to carry. Most remarkably, reclaiming these exiled parts unlocks creativity and confidence you never knew existed. Energy once spent on psychological defenses becomes available for truly living. You feel less fragmented, more whole, and your empathy expands as you recognize your struggles in others, fostering deeper purpose and spiritual connection. Jung didn't think we should run from the shadow. He believed the greatest adventure was to face it head-on. Shadow work, he called it, a journey to meet and accept the darkest corners of ourselves. Why? Because what you resist persists, and what you acknowledge, you reclaim. The beautiful truth about shadow work is that you don't have to venture into this inner wilderness alone. Some people start with simple journaling, writing about emotional triggers and exploring who they envy or what they regret from their earliest years. Others find meaning in dream journals, where recurring nightmares aren't problems to erase, but messages sent from the shadow asking to be heard. Therapists and trusted friends act as mirrors, helping you see the patterns that are hardest to spot from inside. You might dialogue with your shadow as if it were a character in a story, asking what it wants, what it fears, how it's been trying to protect you all these years. Your body holds wisdom too. Notice where emotions lodge themselves physically and let movement, breath, or gentle touch help release what's been stored in your muscles and bones. Sometimes the most powerful work happens in conversation with a therapist or trusted friend who can spot the patterns you're too close to see. It isn't easy. Sometimes what you find is grief, regret, even anger at yourself or those you love. Shadow work can shake up your self-image. It sometimes brings a dark night of the soul before the dawn. But this is the price of integration, that slow, honest acceptance of every part of yourself. As you face these shadows with gentleness, you transform them. Rage turns to clarity, shame becomes compassion, and unconscious reactivity gives way to mindful choice. Through this gentle alchemy of acceptance, you don't just heal, you become more authentically, powerfully yourself. Real people have lived this journey. Consider the perfectionist whose inner critic is relentless, never allowing a moment's rest, who finally discovers this voice was once meant to protect a vulnerable child. By meeting that shadow, the pain behind the perfection, she finally feels free enough to express herself and rest. The parent who can't say, "I love you," realizes it's not a lack of words, but blocked emotions inherited from generations of silence. As the secret is faced and felt, rooms once locked tight open to warmth and connection. Jung wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Imagine if the fate you feared was just a piece of your story asking to be seen, even loved. When we practice shadow work, whether through art, mindful reflection, honest conversation, or gentle bodily awareness, something remarkable happens. You become less reactive, less stuck. New energy awakes. Your relationships change. Confidence returns, not from pretending to be perfect, but from knowing you are gloriously, profoundly human. Shadow work isn't just psychological spring cleaning. It is a spiritual awakening, an acknowledgement that everything about you, even the messy, taboo, or painful, is part of the symphony of your being. As Jung showed us, you don't become enlightened by trying to be pure, but by welcoming your darkness into the light. Your shadow is not a curse, but a resource, The more you whisper to its depths, the more you heal. So next time you notice a trigger, a grudge, a memory you'd rather skip over, pause. See it as an invitation. The shadow is not your enemy. It is the doorway to strength you never knew, empathy you were missing, purpose you longed for. Your shadow is not a curse. It's a hidden reservoir of wisdom and strength. By daring to face it, by bringing your secrets and wounds into the light, you begin to live as your whole, authentic self. The journey is yours alone, but the rewards, self-acceptance, peace, and true freedom are more than worth it. Dare to look, dare to feel. On the other side of your shadow, everything changes. What might you become if you stopped running from your darkest parts and embraced them instead?